Welcome to the One for the Road podcast. My name is Mr. K. Alongside me, as usual, is C Squared. Tonight's podcast, we thought we'd go out to Polymarket. C Squared was like, you got to check out this site, Polymarket. I did. It's phenomenal. It asks some really intriguing questions. It has odds. It's crowdsourced. It has various topics, politics, economy, tech, and Trump. Thought we'd do some economy polls and just see how it goes. Let's go to economy. All right, here's a good one. Fed decision in May. 50 plus basis points decrease, 25 basis points decrease, no change. They also have odds for May and June, and I believe July. Let me look at this.
Guys, and so just to...
Yes, May, June, and July.
Just to, if you haven't seen this site, what it allows you to do is basically gamble like a horse race. And odds are set by the amount of bets that are placed on any given outcome. So that's how a horse race works. If you're going off 2-1 in a horse race, that means the majority of the people are betting that horse to win. And then, if you're going off 60-1, that means that a much smaller percentage of people have bet that horse to win. And that's how those odds are calculated. Well, guess what? Polymarket is the web version of a horse race with questions. So betting, you're not only able to bet on the outcome, you are also able to bet, as John alluded to, on the likelihood of the date by either, I guess some questions are monthly and some questions are weekly and maybe even daily. That's exactly right. So very interesting ability to poll users as to what the general world public believes the outcome is, but also a very interesting way to conduct a gambling market on just about anything that you can think of. So great site, superb idea. Hats off to the folks who built that site.
So what do you think? Fed decision in May. Stand pat, 25 basis points decrease or 50? Or an increase? So there's four choices where the money's going. 50 plus basis points decrease, 25 basis points decrease, period. There's no plus or minus. No change, or a 25 plus basis points increase.
Let me say that I'm betting the odds on favorite is 25 basis point cut.
It is not.
Oh, really?
Not for May.
Okay, so then it almost has to default as no change.
Yes. So the way the polling...
I would personally say 25 basis point cut is going to occur. If I was placing a bet, I would bet that because the Don putting substantial pressure on Chairman Powell seems like he may bow to that pressure and then go a little while longer between the next cut, right? And so not essentially put what the Fed has been used to doing in crises, which is at every meeting cutting a quarter point. So my theory would be on that, John, is throw the Don a bone and then tell him to go sit down for a while.
Yes, I agree too. I think there's a bit of pressure on Powell to do this. I don't think Powell is the type to bend to the pressure, but I think the other thing at play is there's been some really good economic data coming out. I think inflation is pretty much steadied. There's lots of good job numbers. Unemployment seems down. The other thing at play too is, man, dudes are crushing their earnings. I mean, companies are coming out, and almost every company is crushing their earnings. Now, I don't know if that's because they lowered their expectations to a point where they were going to crush earnings.
Right.
But there's been a lot of recent companies that have come out with earnings across vast sectors of the economy, not just tech. We're talking AbbVie today crushed. They're a pharmaceutical. I would put them in drug and pharmaceutical sector. I've seen HVAC, people like Fix crushed. Almost everybody's crushing. Google crushed. So across a lot of different segments, companies who have traditionally done well are crushing their earnings. So I agree too. And not only throw Trump a bone, throw us investors a bone.
Yeah,
because we took a beating some of these months with the tariffs.
Here is why I disagree with Trump on that. And there are some earnings that are likely not to crush, which would be companies that are retail based that rely lots on Chinese goods to be so they're not having a happy day. The commercial real estate sector, I don't believe, is going to be having a happy day in the very near future. But I am not sure that cutting rates helps retailers. It definitely helps the real estate folks. I think that's what this is about, and I think that's why Powell will do this, because may eventually cut even more, because the commercial real estate folks have a lot of rollovers that need to occur. And the bottom line is that it's at much higher rates than when they originally acquired these loans on these properties during COVID, and which is like a 3 to 5 year turnover on the paper that finances commercial real estate, dude. Which, if you go back 5 years ago, the bottom line is that the market was weak and interest rates were considerably lower. So from that aspect, now they're going to have to refinance these properties at a much higher rate. So I think Trump, being a real estate guy at heart, might be driving interest rates lower. Guess what? That really does not help the bulk of the American people, I can tell you, because it does spark inflation. It puts pressure on the dollar, which is already under pressure. So that does not, in fact, help the American people. And there is also rumor that there are some back end policies being put in place for the Fed to bail out banks if things turn disastrous, which is also really not that helpful to the American people.
No, not at all.
Helpful to the owners of massive bank stocks, but it really isn't that helpful to the American people. So, I have not been paying a ton of attention because Trump's got many other things going on right now of interest on the global stage. However, if these were the only issues on the table, I would be poking him in the eye, because I don't think either of those actually provide any value to the majority of people that voted for him.
Right, exactly.
So,
So one thing you mentioned before, retailers with a heavy reliance on China. When you say that, the first name that comes to mind to me is Apple. And Apple reports May 1 because
yeah,
every one of those phones are made in China. I mean,
yep,
everything they do from a hardware perspective is China.
yep, yep,
So
and
that
so that is going to be a problem for them. And but I was thinking more of straight out big box retailers, the
right,
Walmarts, the Targets,
true.
the
Yeah,
you
especially
know
Walmart.
of the world, because Apple potentially could, I don't know, but could source their phones slash the internal pieces of that from somewhere else. Um, uh, Now, obviously, they have a big footprint, obviously in China, but the price of their phones would go up. But I'm sure they could source some of this stuff from somewhere else. Whereas, you look at a retailer like a Target or a Walmart, and like 90% of the goods in this
Right.
place
Yes.
are
Yes.
so.
Walmart.
So your sourcing model has not become one product that I need to source from somewhere else. It now becomes my entire supply chain is built
Right.
on this,
Yeah.
dude. Basically everything in this place. And
Right.
so, uh, um, that seems interesting, man.
So the sentiment at Polymarket is 90% are voting with no change on 9% at 25. I'm with you, C squared. I'm thinking 25 BPS decrease. They're saying like the odds of that get higher as time goes on. June 18th is kind of neck and neck. 52% no change, 25 in June. And in July, yeah, it goes there. People are confident and they're betting that July there's going to be a higher outcome of that 25 basis points decrease.
See, but I look at that, John, and say this is why I'm would bet on 25, because okay, he gives Trump what he wants. Trump can't complain anymore. And realistically, to help the commercial real estate sector, you're going to have to dump more than 25 points. So then I save face in through a percentage of the early and midsummer by not cutting rates, and say, see, the Fed is independent.
Right,
We didn't
right,
cut rates. And then Powell does, in fact, do exactly what Trump wanted. This may be, in my mind, it's almost could be a fake argument, dude. And
right,
in August, the commercial real estate sector starts to suck wind. And all of a sudden, without Don having to complain about Powell at all,
right,
Powell starts lowering rates by a quarter point, a half a point, three quarters of a point, because why? His banks are exposed to that commercial real estate paper, dude.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is really, it almost looks to me like this is some kind of theater act of a fake dichotomy where Powell's like, no, the Fed is conservative. We don't want to spark inflation. When really they're conspiring behind the scenes to say, oh shit, the commercial real estate market is going to be hating it if we don't do something soon. So let's put
right,
on the act and plan to like lower interest rates by this time next year by a point and a half. You
right,
know?
right,
And
right.
that's what I
That could
see.
happen.
Which by the way, will not benefit again, will not benefit. That will spark inflation, and the average Joe will be pissed,
Right.
including me.
Right.
I really
Yep.
don't
Yep.
care about your commercial real estate, dude.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
Ooh,
like,
I don't either.
I don't really care about your bag either.
Right.
So how's that?
So the next one is U.S. recession in 2025. Where do you think the wind's blowing on that, C squared?
Uh, bu- 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 what it does give a month or it's the
No, the
entire
year. Will there be one U.S. recession in 2025?
arguably we're already there. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is that I will say yes to that. Um, who was I won't even speculate on the odds. At least 40% say yes. How's that?
Pretty good. So right now on the site, 57% are saying yes.
Okay, and that would be in my opinion, when I say that, they say that the sign of a recession is the uninversion of the yield curve. I believe it's of from the 30-year rate to the 10-year rate. And that, I believe, happened in December of 2024. So
Good.
that is the reason that I say that that is that we potentially are already in a recession, and we haven't realized that yet because some companies still do fine in a recession, especially when you're looking at things that are not staple, that are technology based, like AI based customized chips in your data center and stuff of that nature. Um, Companies that have a strategic plan built on that are still going to buy those, because guess what, if I don't, the entire business plan that I outlined is now in the trash. What am I going to tell investors?
Right.
You
Right.
know, I don't care if it's a
Right.
recession or not. Maybe I cut back a little bit, but I can't say I'm not buying any of these things, because guess what, it's the implementation of the core of the business plan that I've outlined.
Right. Right.
Without this, there is nothing. It's a sham.
Right. So I just looked up the definition because I found one is a two consecutive quarters of downturn in economic activity. So I'd hate to see it, but I think it's going to happen. Is kind of where I'm at. I think that, man, the tariffs are not. I mean, they're not going to help short term. I'll tell you that. And I think
No,
because of that, we're going to have a recession.
I wonder if we weren't going to have one anyway, but certainly that is like adding insult to injury.
Right.
Because if there was some way that you were narrowly going to avoid this, you've now put the, which I don't believe was the case. I think you were going to have a recession anyway. But the bottom line is, because if you look to the inversion of the yield curve, Trump wasn't even in office when that happened.
Right.
He
Right.
didn't even
Right.
take office. So that was a major, major in economic indicator screaming recession before he even took office.
Right.
So
Right.
the bottom line is that I think he just added insult to injury, which is fine by me. I think lots of people are stepping up and negotiating with him,
Yes. Yes.
and so that's fabulous, dude. That's
Yes.
fabulous. And uh, I read, this is a while back, this is a couple of years back, but I do know the fact that China was losing manufacturing to other countries in Asia already that were doing the exact same thing of undercutting Chinese labor with their cheaper labor, which included places like Vietnam, or maybe not cheaper labor, but more sophisticated labor, South
Right.
Korea. I own
Mm.
two keyboards. Both of them are manufactured in South Korea.
Okay. Yeah.
My son's most high end guitar is manufactured in South Korea.
Okay. Yeah.
The bottom
Yeah.
line is that they certainly have a grasp on the musical instrument industry. So um, I look at it and say that, lots of goods coming out of Indonesia. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Trump is already in negotiation and pushing off those countries' tariffs. So the only issue that you have is who really owns Taiwan,
Right.
which is a whole nother problem, which could be a really ugly problem,
Hmm.
at some point. The other aspect of it is that, and from the Chinese perspective, I look at it and say that they were losing steam anyway. And the third piece of that, John, about recession is how much of this stuff with AI is going,
Right.
and current automated assembly lines is going to be automated. So you know how much labor I need in my factory now? Almost zero.
Yeah.
I need a bunch of programmers that do um, uh, program control languages for these controllers, and I need some mechanical engineering to do the maintenance on these systems. But other than that, this system operates all automated pretty much on its own. So I don't need
Right.
people to solder things anymore. I don't need people to screw on caps to bottles and do all this kind of
Yeah.
foolishness
Yeah.
that had been done 40 years in the past. We've been slowly migrating away from that scenario of human labor. But guess what? That curve now becomes exponential in the aspect of it's picking up steam. And
Right.
what
Right.
happened to in the 70s, I don't need somebody to screw the cap on a bottle anymore, is now exponentially. I don't really need you to touch anything on this assembly line. It is completely automated. And
Right.
so,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Next one. Let's go with U.S. China trade deal before June.
oh, I don't. Those two are not liking each other.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's got to be. I'm saying pretty low. I'm saying that is. I'm saying that they the people who don't like Trump are already calling for somebody needs to burst the bubble and teach him a lesson. And
Yes.
so I am saying that my personal opinion is that is rather low.
Yes. Yes. There's a 28% chance that that's going
Yeah.
to happen, is what the people are
Right,
saying.
right, right, right. And I'm thinking
The
China
people are
is the
saying.
same thing. And I actually saw somebody, I can't recall what channel it was the other day, that they showed a TikTok video of somebody who has been a moderate influencer on TikTok. So who knows who employs him or if he's employed himself or
Right.
whatever. But he was basically saying things like the U.S. he said a lot of facts related to the U.S.'s got a corrupt oligarchy in charge. Okay. Yeah, okay. Then
One hasn't it?
you're not
Yeah.
getting an argument there.
Right.
The bottom line is then he kind of dogged tariffs and said how stupid they are. And then of course he said how wonderfully that China had taken the money that had come in from the US over the past 20 to 30 years and wisely spent that on infrastructure and roads
Mm.
and stuff of that nature. Um, that's where it kind of got off the rails of this almost being like propaganda, saying that yeah, you built a bunch of cities that have no inhabitants, built roads to nowhere, but on the bigger piece of things, you have not discussed the censorship infrastructure that you have put in place for your society
Yes.
um, and social credit scores and stuff like that. So if you're listening out there, hey bud, why don't you actually start telling a little bit of the full story
Right.
instead of
Right.
cherry picking things? We get it. The U.S. oligarchy is corrupt and has lined their own pockets and pissed away the Americans' tax dollars by lining their own pockets. Yes, we get that. That was a true fact that you brought up. But
Right.
when you start essentially pointing out the merits of the way that the CCP operates China, why don't you start being truthful about that?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I think we're really far apart from a U.S. China trade deal. I think Trump has been pretty successful with a lot of the European countries. I mean, I recall the Prime Minister of Italy sitting down and negotiating. I think a lot of countries have come to the table. I think some of them were really freaked out. Vietnam being one of them, like, yeah, how about a 90% tariff on your stuff?
you know
Some of
what,
those,
dude? And our relationship with them is superb. Is
right,
superb. So the
right,
bottom line is that they want to be a partner of the U.S. and the U.S. certainly should reciprocate with
right,
those folks, having not always given them a fair deal on on things in the past. I think they are a perfect trading partner. They want to come to the table. They want growth, and the bottom line is that we should absolutely be friendly with them. They're a perfect.
yes,
They're a
yes,
great Asian trading partner, and in
yes,
my
yes,
personal opinion, and a model trading partner for us. And
yeah, yeah. I think, like you said, I think his goal was to bring people to the table. Everybody's coming to the table, but the China stuff just looks like a just out and out war with escalating tariffs and
yeah,
who's going to blink first. So, I mean, it's almost May. It's really unrealistic, I think, especially at this point, to think we're going to have a deal in June. What I found uh, interesting lately was Trump's like, "Oh, the negotiations are going quite well with China." And China's like, "We haven't even talked to those guys. We're not talking to those guys." So, I mean,
yeah,
that was last week. So, I don't think it
and that
bodes
yeah,
well.
that's he said, she said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I will say that I am on the most part for policies, including most of what he's doing with the tariffs. I've been fairly happy that of the bull in the china shop mentality that the
Yeah.
current administration
Yes,
has
yes.
taken, because things globally were broken, and I think
Yes.
they're broken with China, and we're going to have probably scrap with them. But who else would I say that they are completely broken? You can look up and see if there's a poly market for this. Western Europe.
Right.
I'd love to scrap with Western Europe. You know,
Right.
that's the I will be I will hold my partial Irish tongue on what I really think of Western Europe, but the bottom line is they've not really ever been our friends. And
Right.
we've been their friends. They've never really been our friends,
Right.
especially the folks in London. You know, so
Right. Right.
so uh and if he wants to sit on those folks, all the Western European countries, which are really the NATO allies, which are still not our friends, I don't think they're friends to anybody except the you know, 300 to 500 year old royal oligarchy
Oh
that still
God.
run
Yeah.
Western Europe. Those guys can go pound sand. We're not their friends, man. And the fact
Right.
that you still wear a crown in the country is amazing. It's amazing that the
Yeah.
people have not thrown you into the closest ocean.
Yeah. All righty. Here's an interesting one I want to bounce off
That
you.
was holding my partial Irish tongue.
Yes. Yes. I got two more in the realm of economy, and then we'll pivot to a different area. Here's an interesting one, and I want to get your opinion on. The Fear and Greed Index says extreme fear next Friday.
What is next Friday? I'm trying to think if that's. I don't think that's OPEX. I think we just had an OPEX,
I
didn't
mean,
we?
May 9th, is that one Powell?
Uh,
But I mean, Powell
maybe.
usually delivers around, I thought it was Wednesday or Thursday. It's never
Yeah,
Friday.
maybe that is the PAL because I was going to say, like, like a triple witching OPEX. I don't think that
And
happens more than that's definitely like even more rare than quarterly, I believe, man. So. Uh, Jux, I don't know what news is coming in other than maybe a Fed decision.
right. Yeah, I don't know either. I can't. What's the calendar here? Silence. As I look up, May. It got April. Why? I said May. Yeah, I think it might be offshoot, maybe, of the Powell.
Yeah,
Uh,
the second
I
fraud
think it is,
of
and that's why. By the way, a lot of people on Polymarket are saying that they're not fearful, that nothing's terrible is going to happen.
I can't imagine.
Uh, 16% chance is what people are thinking that something
Maybe
horrible is going
that's
to
just a
happen
random
May
Black
9th.
Friday type stat.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you know, it's like,
yeah. I think it might be they're anticipating fallout of Powell, who would likely deliver a decision uh, Wednesday or Thursday prior.
I can assure you this. I wonder if there's the ability to bet against a rate hike and what the payment is, because I could bet against a rate hike for the next 2 years, and I bet I'm right 100% of the time.
Right. So this one's kind of tech, although it's in the economy. The last one I have here, it's in the economy family, but it screams tech, and it's basically which tech CEO will be gone in 2025.
Ooh. Um, does it give any choices or?
Yeah, I'll give you choices. Sam Altman, OpenAI. Sundar Pichai, Google.
Well, I could make some comments there about,
Yeah.
well, Sam might not leave willingly, but maybe he would leave in cuffs. And they keep, if they keep investigating suspicious activities with Indian interns and stuff of that nature, and so,
Tim Cook, Apple, Dan Clancy, Twitch, Andy Jassy, Amazon, and then Brian Armstrong, Coinbase are the leading contenders for
look.
likelihood of being.
How about Cook too?
Right.
How about we don't come to an agreement with China and Cook slips out the back door of Apple. And
Yeah. Yeah. I would think Cook. I'll tell you, well, Jesse's first with Amazon. I mean, man, he's got a hard act to follow. He followed Bezos, so it was really rough those first couple of months that he took over. But I think the ship has steadied a bit under him, quite well even. I think Pico gets nailed for, excuse me, laying off people like every 4 months.
Could have said Amazon since we were almost late producing this podcast due to an Amazon driver parked in the middle of the road when I went to pick up my son and sat there for literally 5 minutes and backed up traffic with their hazard lights on. And it realistically was gross incompetence.
Right.
If they would have sat there another 2 minutes, not I, but I'm pretty sure that other people were going to start getting out of their cars, and
the
community was going to turn the Amazon van on its side. So there you go, Amazon. One of your drivers
some feedback
just thinks they own the road. How you can stop in between 2 lanes and turn your hazard lights on is beyond me. Be gross incompetence, man.
All right. So Dan Clancy's leading the CEO of Twitch at 28%. Tied for seconds, Pico and Jassy. Pico of Google and Jassy of Amazon.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Altman and Cook are not far behind. I don't see him.
Amazon had many years under Bezos as a rough ride. I can tell you that, where they were not profitable, and they sell a lot of goods made in China. So is that really his? Maybe the guy gets tossed to the curb, but the bottom line is that if a recession and tariffs set in, is that really that he is not running a tight ship, or is that circumstances that he doesn't fully have control over?
Right. I think Cook's more in trouble in 2026. I think the ramifications of his love affair with China are really going to take hold in 2026 as opposed to 2025. I think he'll weather the storm a bit.
Yeah, I think 2026 could be a much rougher ride than 2025.
Yes. All right, let's go Trump. Chance that Trump will declassify the UFO files in 2025.
Oh, good Lord. What
do you think the smart?
How about declassify any files, because he really his AG has produced next to nothing on literally anything. Somebody sent me a list today. I could go down the list of things, and some of it was extremely basic. It was not, the Epstein files, the 9/11 files, it was like really basic stuff that has been withheld. And so it is so chances very low, in my
Right.
personal opinion.
Right. So what's wild is the money on that was high, even like 2 days ago, around 70%. It's fallen to 49, and it might even fall even further. You bring up a great point in that, man, Pam Bondi is like smoke and mirrors. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of talk, and I'm not seeing a lot of action.
Yeah. So I had to bring up the list on things on the list to be given to the public that we have yet to see: the Epstein files, the
Yeah.
J6 tapes, the Biden family indictments, the contents of multiple laptops, including the Clinton laptop, including the Anthony Weiner laptop,
Mhm.
including the Hunter Biden laptop. The files on the investigation of sending $400 million in cash in the back of a C-130 plane to Iran, the investigation of the pandemic and Mr. Fauci, the potential election fraud files of 2020, the
Mm.
audit of the Fort Knox gold reserves,
Mm.
um, the uh, the investigation of high level criminal indictments of USAID fake foundations,
Oh,
and
Jesus, yes.
so that is a rather lengthy list.
Yeah,
And you know what is missing from there? The JFK
that's
files.
what I was
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say.
So,
MLK.
yeah.
MLK too,
And yeah,
I
JFK,
heard.
MLK. Yeah, you got it. That's right. The Malcolm X. The
Right,
bottom line is that, huh? That's a rather lengthy list
right,
that we have. Pick one of the
right,
20 and release something
right,
here, and let's see what we got. And the
right,
answer is you ain't getting nothing.
right,
So no, so chances of UFO files next to zero.
right, right, right. I mean, if you prioritize that list, and like you said, pick one because we're at zero.
Yeah,
So pick
yeah,
one.
exactly, dude. The files they kept on Sasquatch, the Loch Ness
Right.
monster, and any other um, uh, paranormal experience they've been hiding.
Right. But out of that list, I mean, I'd go USA or maybe the Clintons or Bidens, and like a second or third spot there.
Right. Yeah, your my perspective is we're going to get nothing.
Oh
We're
yeah,
going to
I
get
mean, well,
yeah,
what have we gotten so far?
right. You're going to get another 18 months of smoke and mirror gaslighting, and then the Don will dump Bondi for somebody else who will gaslight for the other 2 years. Right?
Right,
That is pretty well what I she'll take the heat, and the bottom line is that, and then you'll get somebody else to be gaslight. The disappointing fact is, where is Cash Patel, who had a much
right,
stronger relationship with the public than Bondi ever did. And so it appears that there's nothing happening in as it relates to any of those events with Cash. So that is disappointing, very disappointing.
yes. Thought they had one on who would be fired first, but I can't find it. Let me try one more search. I can't find it. All right, let's move on. Trump stuff here. Let's go to tech really quick. Who will acquire TikTok? You want
Ooh.
to know? You want some choices? Or you want
Well, I would say that like Meta is in that list, but I'm pretty sure
yes.
that they will not be allowed to do that, having owned a bunch of other technologies
Oh,
like
that's
that. They're
true.
getting
I
very
hadn't thought of
close to
that.
being a monopoly in that space. I,
Yeah, I
you
thought
know,
Meta's in there, but they're not in the. They're like
yeah,
10th or
I can't
11th.
imagine that would get regulatory.
True.
Well, how about somebody weird like Microsoft or something
Yeah, they're up there.
like that? Um,
There's someone even weirder if you think about it. That's up.
yeah.
That's number two.
Let me guess. Elon. Uh,
Elon's one.
yeah, right, exactly, dude.
Elon's one, but there's a company in the tech industry that's two.
Huh.
I think Microsoft's third or fourth.
Yeah, if it's not X, I'm trying to think who in that space would be, well, shucks. Yeah, Amazon is number
Amazon's
four.
up there, but not number two.
Yeah,
Amazon, I think, is
I
fourth.
don't know.
Oracle.
I That was such an outside thought in my head. I actually
I couldn't believe it.
thought of that, and
I, I couldn't believe it.
dude, that makes absolutely no sense. How do I bet against that? That absolutely makes
Jump
no
on
sense
polymarket.com.
whatsoever. And that doesn't even relate to any of the company's core. They don't own a
Right,
browser. They don't own a media site. They
right.
don't own any media apps that they use. What
This is
would
the
you be
way to get
doing with
in.
that mess?
This is the way to get in. You know Oracle. They don't innovate or make anything. They just buy.
Well, yeah,
This is right up their alley.
that's true, but they buy things that essentially are that somewhat integrate with
Yes,
their
yes.
business.
Right. Or the database.
That yeah, that their essential business strategy that relates to providing corporate products and
That's
corporate
true. That's true.
technology products.
Right.
How does this
Right.
how does operating
Social
a
media site.
video
Right.
site play into that at
Right.
all? And here's why I would say that, John, is okay, how does Google make money, or how does Alphabet make money in the YouTube space? They have an entire advertising model to the public. So I have this corporate sales force who calls on purchasing managers to, I now want to convert the company to have a complete public sales model where I'm dealing with John placing a Google ad, or what, somebody else that wants to spend $15 a day placing as strategically placing ads. Do you have that model in place anywhere? I'm not sure how you make that work.
Right. Right.
So I don't know, maybe on the back end of TikTok is that model, and that's really what they want to buy. But boy, you do need some support infrastructure that is prepared to be publicly facing to operate that model, and based on your corporate support for really expensive products, I would say that model is even less
Right.
responsive, and you get pretty much a D for your corporate support model,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
they,
Exactly.
based on my personal experience.
Yeah, based
And
on mine too.
so what are we going to get when, instead of, I just hung up with the guy that gave us $300,000 in licensing for, 10 products last year. I just blew him off and hung up with him. How about the guy that gave us $30 last month? What
Right.
kind of service you plan on giving him?
Right. Well, Elon's number one. I can kind of see it. I'm just wondering, given the stock beating he's gotten lately and his he must have lost some money. And again,
Who's
eventually
that?
he'll come back. Elon, with the Tesla beating with the stock. I mean,
Yeah, I saw maybe a realistic rumor, maybe a fake rumor about him having a Tesla with a hydrogen engine in it.
oh wow,
That would be quite
that would be cool.
entertaining. I would
Yeah.
consider, I was never going to buy one of your battery operated models.
Right. Right.
It, but pointless to just tell me I can drive, that I can use, my local power provider to charge my car at some obscene amount. I don't like them to start with. Why would I give them more money?
Right. Right.
Yeah, to charge
Exactly.
my damn car. Number two, um, the fact that the source of lithium all over the world is highly disturbing based on what I have read. So I would never support that model either. Um, and at a certain point in time, your cars were outrageously priced. And
Yes.
so, would I consider a reasonably priced hydrogen car if there was some easy way to actually find a hydrogen fueling station? And um, uh, yeah, absolutely. That
Right.
is that very compelling and interesting model, and so I think he really needs to bake out, before he bakes out the car, if he truly is going down that path, um, how you build a hydrogen fueling station,
Yes.
which um, does is somewhat similar, because it does. I mean, the easiest way to create hydrogen gas is via electrolysis, which is electricity. So
Yeah.
electricity through
Yeah.
the water. So the bottom line is that economically feasible?
Right.
Because we sure got a lot of oil, and
Yeah. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
bang, if you start pumping that seriously, the bang for the buck. So this is not about, yeah, then this is my problem with lots of people and lots of thoughts. It is that the bulk of the environment is controlled by our relationship to the sun, which in the center of the solar system. So anybody else putting out any dribble is really got ulterior motives, like Al Gore and the rest
Right.
of the John Kerry and all these people, globalist idiots trying to get a globalist tax structure in place. So anybody that has any other information other than that is, if you dig down into it, it is probably highly questionable science. And
Right.
so
Right.
that's number one. And number two is, if you get away from, I want to be the coolest kid on the block and have this new technology, dollar for dollar, pumping oil and refining oil out of the ground is the cheapest, currently the cheapest, most effective solution to running your car. There
Yep.
is, and I will just say, there is one person, I think he calls his car the Omega. If you look him up on YouTube, legitimately bona fiable, has used a Volkswagen turbo diesel four-cylinder and built a super light car around that was geared
Mm.
in a interesting way to get 104 miles to
Holy
the gallon.
moly.
And
Wow.
104 miles to the gallon, and that is a bona fide fact. He is legitimate and out on YouTube. Look up his
Wow.
car. I think it's called an
The
Omega.
Omega.
So he did not even build the engine. He took the engine out of another car, a standardly manufactured engine by a major auto company,
Right.
and made some modifications to the gearing and
Nice.
the frame of the vehicle and made it get 104 miles to the gallon. So in other words, with a large enough gas tank, I could drive pretty well from one side of the country to the other side of the country on 3 or 4 tanks of gas.
Wow.
And, try that trick with any other technology.
Right. Right. Let's end it with, who will Trump pardon in his first 100 days? You want to guess some names on the list, or should I give you some? There's some beauties.
Who would he pardon? Well, he already pardoned the J6 folks, most of the J6 folks. So,
Yes.
other than that, I don't know who. I'm sure he's got some slimy cronies that he owes a favor to. I can't place who they are off the top.
Yeah, there's some
Well,
that.
how about who has somewhat helped him and probably does deserve a pardon because he, Eric, shucks, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams.
Adams.
Is he on there? Is he on?
Yes, he's on there.
Okay,
He's up
so
there.
I would say if there's anybody deserving of
He
a
is in
pardon,
second
it would
place,
be-
matter of fact.
Oh, really? Okay, good. So I would say if there's anybody
Very
deserving
good.
of a pardon, it is him because the Democratic Party loved him until he basically started to tell the truth, and then, of
Yes.
course, in true DNC fashion,
Yeah.
then he was the biggest scumbag liar
Yep.
ever because
Yep.
he actually started
See
to tell
Tulsi
the
Gabbard.
truth. And
Yeah. See Tulsi Gabbard.
yeah,
See
exactly.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, right.
He's second. Who's first? First is Bannon, but I don't think he's been.
Well, Bannon
needs to
already
be
served
pardoned.
his time, so
Yeah.
I
I don't
got
think he needs to be
nothing on
pardoned.
Bannon.
The list is kind of weird. It's got people who definitely need to be pardoned and people who haven't done anything. But I guess if you give them a pardon, that in case they do something down the road. Bannon's one. Adams is tied with Roger Stone.
Another one who already served his time served.
That's
So
what
who
I thought
cares,
too.
man?
I mean, it's a weird list. They got well, one that is actually serving time is is everyone's friend SBF.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be pardoning that guy.
No, the crook.
Yeah,
No.
right. Exactly, dude. Whatever.
Julian
You
Assange
were
is on
quite
here.
potentially, and I don't know this for a fact, so it is certainly my speculation, but you were quite potentially laundering money for political parties on the back end. So the bottom line is that why would you be deserving of any type of pardon?
Right. And they got names out there. Julian Assange. I don't know.
Again, he's out and
Right.
wandering around. Where were you? You would have been a great hero had you have pardoned him on term
Right.
one, except you had the deep state, your deep state boy, Mike Pompeo, all over this thing. And, and you were listening to him instead of what the people were telling you. So, what two things: you had your opportunity to pardon him and you didn't do it because
Right.
you weren't listening to the people that put you in office, and you had the deep state in your ear and you weren't able to figure that out, at the time, sadly enough. So
Right.
hopefully we can have a little better record in
Right.
term
Term
two.
two. Yeah. The other one's Snowden,
Yeah, right.
which I
Right.
don't
That's
see.
another one.
I don't think he's with SBF in my mind. There's
Yeah,
no
right,
chance.
exactly, dude.
There's just
Yeah,
no
yeah.
chance.
Yep, right. And I did forget about Snowden, and I kind of like Snowden, but I'm not actually sure what he took out of there. It's impossible to tell what he took out of out of his
NSA.
job. So I would actually say Eric Adams is probably the better
Oh
person
yes.
to pardon. Not that he's higher on the list, the better person to pardon, because the guy was ran for mayor and had a guilty conscience about the garbage that was going on and deciding to blow the whistle, and which is
Yeah.
what more people need to do. I don't care if you're left or right, it's what
Right.
more people need to do when they
Yes.
see something that is blatantly
Wrong.
wrong. You need to stand up and raise your hand. So good for
Yeah.
those type of
Yes.
people deserve a pardon more than anybody else because they risked everything for nothing, and
Exactly.
which is as good as it gets.
Yes. Those people are heroes.
Yep, I agree.
Well, C squared, I say we wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get us out on some business. You can reach us at one for the road podcast at gmail.com. Yes, I can remember that. The number one, the number four, and then the rest in small case. Our soon to be constructed website is onefortheroad.net. Like and subscribe us on YouTube. We are on 3 audio platforms: rss.com, Spotify, and Podbean. For C squared, this is Mr. K. Have a great week, folks.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.